In our system, there are two things, what is called the pro-aggregatory mechanisms and the anti-aggregatory mechanisms. Pro-aggregatory mechanisms aggregate the platelets, they produce activation, aggregation, adhesion of the platelets and produce what is called the clot or the thrombus formation. To counterbalance the formation of microthrombi and thrombus, within the vascular system we have got what is called a fibrinolytic system. The fibrinolytic system is, there is what is called a protein plasminogen, which is converted into plasmin by the action of tissue plasminogen activator. And there is what is called a plasminogen activators. These plasminogen activators will act on the plasminogen and convert them into plasminogen. So, in order that the plasminogen system is kept in balance, there is what is called the plasminogen activator inhibitor 1. Plasminogen activator inhibitor 1 inhibits the plasminogens, so much so plasminogen is not converted into plasmin. When there is no plasmin, there are no scissors to cut the clot. So, there is no lysis of the clot. Now, we have got agents which act on the plasminogens and plasminogen system, which are called the fibrinolytic agents. Streptokinase binds and activates the plasminogens so that the plasminogen is activated and plasmin is formed and clot lysis occurs. Whereas TPA and RTPA and TNK, these act not on binding to the plasminogen in general, but on binding to the clot specific plasmin. And then so much so, they are specific to the clot area and not in the generalized general circulation, and they cause lysis of the clot through the formation of plasmin. Protein C and PI1, they inhibit the plasminogen, so much so plasminogen activity is reduced. They work against fibrinolysis, whereas these work for fibrinolysis. What are the criteria for reperfusion? Typical ischemic chest pain of more than 20-30 minutes should be there. Onset within the previous 6 to 12 hours. Beyond 12 hours, thrombolysis is of no use. At least 1 millimeter of ST segment elevation and 2 or more limb leads, and 2 millimeter ST segment elevation, 2 or more chest leads, or new onset bundle branch block LBB. Patients should satisfy all these conditions before we think of reperfusion. The ischemic chest pain must be more than 20 minutes and should not be more than 12 hours. ST segment elevation of 1 millimeter in limb leads, 2 or more millimeters in chest leads, or new onset bundle branch block. If we do not have the previous ECG, in the backdrop of ongoing ischemic pain, any bundle branch block should be presumed to be new onset. Reperfusion in the absence of contraindications for primary PCI and thrombolytic therapy. If there are no contraindications, we have two methods of reperfusion: recanalization or opening up of the vessel. One is take the patient into the cath lab, do an angio and do a primary PCI to the culprit vessel. The second thing is use a thrombolytic agent to dissolve the clot. What are the various fibrinolytic agents that are available? These are usually classified as first generation, second generation and third generation. The first generation drugs are streptokinase and urokinase. Second generation drugs, tissue plasminogen activator or recombinant tissue plasminogen activator, TPA or TPA. The third generation drugs are RPA, recombinant plasminogen activator, and then you have got TNK TPA. TNK TPA is also called tenecteplase. We have seen in the previous slide that there are three generations of fibrinolytic agents. Which are the agents which we choose depending on what information we have? This slide summarizes that. Streptokinase or urokinase, they are not selective to fibrin, whereas TPA, RTPA and TNK tenecteplase are selective to the fibrin. They are selective to the clot that is already formed, and they go and bind on the formed clot to the fibrin and try and dissolve the fibrin, whereas this is a systemic effect and part of it is seen on the clot. The duration of treatment with streptokinase is 60 minutes, with TPA is 90 minutes infusion IV, RTPA 2 doses of 10 minutes and 10 minutes duration each, and then this is of course a bolus injection of within 5 to 10 seconds. The greatest advantage with this drug is a single quick shot injection, tenecteplase. Half-life in minutes, 23 hours, very prolonged, very short, less than 5, 13 to 16 and 20 hours. Because of the long half-life, the effect is sustained for about at least 1 hour, during which time the clot lysis occurs. Dosage 1.5 million units in normal saline given over a period of 60 minutes. Here it is split, the total dose of 100 milligrams is split into 15 milligrams bolus, 15 milligrams next 60 minutes, 35 milligrams next 30 minutes. Here 10 units the first bolus, followed by, after a gap of 30 minutes, give another 10 units over a period of 10 minutes. Here it is not in terms of 0.5 milligrams per every kilogram, depending on the body weight. If the body weight is 60 kilograms, 60 multiplied by 0.5, 60 multiplied by 0.5 will be 30 milligrams. 30 milligrams given statin for a 60 kilogram man. For a 70 kilogram man it will be 35. For 80 kilogram person it will be 40 milligrams per, as a stat injection given as a single shot. Drop of blood pressure, hypotension, allergic reactions are common with streptokinase. They are not seen with any one of the recombinant fibrinolytics like TPA, RTPA or TNK. TIMI reflow status, that is third grade, that is full reflow, good reflow of grade 3 occurs in 32% here, up to 54%, 60% and 60%. Major bleeds, 6.3% of the people develop with streptokinase because it is a non-specific, non-selective one, whereas here these recombinant ones, the bleeding rates are much lesser compared to streptokinase. 30-day mortality 7.4% in these, whereas 6.3, 6.20, 6.2, all three of them fare equally, whereas the mortality due to either intracranial bleed or bleeding elsewhere is seen with streptokinase. The cost of course is an important factor in a country like ours. This is the cheapest available, around 3 to 4,000 rupees. Alteplase costs around 30,000 rupees. Retiplase costs around 20,000 rupees. Tenecteplase costs, depending on the body weight, whether you use 30, 35 or 40 milligrams, the range of the dose may cost anywhere between 18 to 27,000. So to summarize, the TNK or tenecteplase has got all the advantages. It is fibrin selective, duration of action and treatment is very short, half-life is long, and the dosage is as per the body weight. The allergy and BP reductions are not seen. TIMI blood flow 60%, grade 3 flow is seen. Major bleeding occurrence is less, and 30-day mortality also is comparatively less to compare to streptokinase. The only drawback is the cost. And every patient who can afford should have a quick injection of tenecteplase before he is shifted to higher center. This slide summarizes in the title what is shown here. Time is muscle. From the time of pain to the time of reperfusion. 0 time, 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours and 12 hours. If we cross 6 hours, the benefit that we get out of mortality benefit we get is very small. So any reperfusion should be aimed within 4 hours and preferably within 6 hours. After 12 hours, unless there is ongoing ischemic pain and ongoing acute process, there is not much of benefit that we get by giving thrombolysis at that stage by reperfusing. Mortality reduction, benefit of in myocardial mortality reduction in terms of percentages, if you do at 0 hour, theoretically it should be 100%, 1 hour, 2 hours, the mortality reduction drops down slowly and then and drastically after 6 hours. So if you do after 6 hours, only around 10% reduction we can achieve, whereas if we do any time before 4 hours, more than 25% of the mortality reduction can be achieved. What are the contraindications to thrombolysis? There are absolute contraindications and relative contraindications. As listed here, hemorrhagic conditions, cerebrovascular accident, or history of hemorrhagic CVA or cerebral infarction within the last 3 months, intracranial AV malformations, aneurysms, intracranial tumors, closed head injury within the past 3 months, aortic dissection, severe hypertension, BP more than 180 by 110, active bleed or active bleeding diathesis, acute pericarditis are absolute contraindications. Relative ones are prior cerebral ischemia in 3 months ago, allergy to previous use of streptokinase, we cannot reuse it because of the antibody formation, recent internal bleed, prolonged CPR with chest trauma, and major surgery in the last 3 weeks, active peptic ulcer disease, vascular punctures which are non-compressible, severe menstrual bleed, history of ocular bleed, intraocular bleed, and pregnancy are relative contraindications. When we say relative, we have to weigh the risk-benefit ratio and then decide whether we do thrombolysis or not. Remember here, age is not mentioned here as a contraindication. Many people think that advancing age is a contraindication, but advancing age without any one of these conditions is not a contraindication for thrombolysis. What are the fatality rates in STMI? 20% of the myocardial infarctions are silent. This is because of diabetic neuropathy or autonomic neuropathy, or the patients are elderly. 15 to 20% of STMI patients die before they come for admission. This is because they develop severe life-threatening arrhythmias, particularly ventricular fibrillation, and they die. We say massive heart attack. Doesn't mean that all the blood vessels are clogged. It means that the blood supply to the vital part of the electrical conduction system is disturbed so much so patient went in for ventricular fibrillation and died. 10% died during hospitalization. Majority of the hospital deaths are within the first 2 days. This emphasizes the need for early intervention. So, if we bring the patient early and intervene early, we can reduce the in-hospital mortality. Most deaths are in the first year, they occur within the first 2 weeks. Again, everything is around the infarct time and not removed from the infarct time. Congestive heart failure, arrhythmias, aneurysms, they increase the fatality. Perfusion, within 2 hours, they decrease the death rate by more than 50%. If the reperfusion is not done within 2 hours, then of course the mortality risk becomes higher. Major acute coronary events or major acute cardiac events, MACE. Major acute coronary events, sudden cardiac death, SCD, acute myocardial infarction, and unstable angina. Rupture of high risk or vulnerable plaques is the cause of MACE. Inner plaque material is exposed to the blood and initiates formation of platelet fibrin thrombus on the rupture site. Ruptures may seal without detectable sequelae, or the patient may experience acute coronary syndrome or sudden cardiac death. Majority of the vulnerable plaques appear insignificant on CAG. Before rupture, less than 75% stenosis. This is one paradox. Majority of the stenosis of more than 75 have no vulnerable plaques. They have stable plaques. How do we predict the prognosis of a patient of CAD, particularly STMI? LV functional damage, severity of the CAD, and the modifiable factors. If the patient has got LV functional damage, as evidenced by history of prior myocardial infarction, ECG showing pathological Q waves, congestive heart failure, cardiomegaly in the chest X-ray, decreased ejection fraction of less than 40, or decreased end-systolic volume, left ventricular regional wall motion abnormalities on echocardiography, conduction disturbances, mitral regurgitation, ischemic mitral regurgitation, decreased exercise tolerance. All these suggest LV functional damage and are predictors of poor prognosis. Depending on the severity of the CAD, anatomically, single vessel disease, double vessel disease, triple vessel disease, the number of vessels are more affected, the greater will be the severity and prognosis will be poor. Degree of stenosis and extent, to some extent, the degree of stenosis correlates with the prognosis. Transient IHD and Holter also is a poor prognostic sign. ETT induced excessive test testing induced ST deviations also are prognostic predictors of poor prognosis. Progressive symptoms of IHD which are not remitting in spite of treatment also prognosticate poorly. Increasing age of course has got poor prognosis. Modifiable risk factors like diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia, excess weight, smoking, other comorbidities like CKD, other metabolic factors, ventricular arrhythmias, all of them, they increase the mortality and are poor prognostic indicators. Will there be infarction of the right ventricle? Yes, right ventricular infarction is a separate entity. Inferior valve STEMI with right ventricular myocardial infarction, a high risk subset. Remember, whenever a patient has got inferior valve infarction, the chances of right ventricular MI are also very great. In such a scenario, we have to look for right ventricular leads. Mortality rate in this subset is around 25 to 30%. Aggressive treatment with reperfusion is a must for this subset. In all cases of inferior valve MI, right ventricular myocardial infarction should be sought by recording ECG in the right sided precordial leads, particularly V4R. ST elevation in V4R is a powerful predictor of right ventricular infarction. Low cardiac output in inferior valve infarction should prompt us to look for the right ventricular myocardial infarction, which is the culprit for the low cardiac output. Treatment objectives in right ventricular infarction is to maintain the right ventricular preload, to give inotropic support, to decrease the afterload of the right ventricle, and early reperfusion by PCI, CABG or thrombolysis. IV normal saline has to be given to increase the blood volume and increase the right ventricular preload and maintain the preload, and then increase the right ventricular output. No diuretics please. Nitrate should not be given in these patients because they produce venodilatation, they reduce the right ventricular preload. So give ACE inhibitors, and intra-aortic balloon pump is essential for these patients who have right ventricular infarct.